Hello everyone. This is what the task that you have to do today. It's very similar to what you did last week where you're converting fractions, decimals, and percents. But today we're actually looking at fractions in simplest form as well, which means it cannot be reduced further. So for the first example, you have 1/4. That is the fraction written in simplest form. So if it were out of 100, 1/4 becomes 25 over 100, 25 hundredths. And you could do that by saying 4 times 25 equals 100, and 1 times 25 equals 25. And then when you're turning that into a decimal number, remember 25 hundredths. Just by saying the fractional word, you are saying what the decimal is. And then into percent, you create 25%. Just like your work last week. Except that you do have questions now where one of your fractions will not be out of 100. So you have to convert simplest form fractions into a fraction out of 100 before turning it into a decimal and percent. So in this case, you have 11 over 20. 20 would turn into 100 by multiplying it by 5. So I'm just going to pull out a different color here. Okay, 20 times 5 is equal to 100. And then because you have to do the same thing to the numerator that you did to the denominator, in order to create equivalent fractions, you're going to do 11 times 5. And that creates 55. So now you have 55 100ths. And as we did before, turning that into a decimal number is just by writing down the number. And if you wanted to use that trick that we used before, you can see how many zeros are in your denominator, and that's the number of times you move the decimal over. 1, 2. So that you end up with 0.55 or 55 hundredths. And then as a percent, that would be 55 per every 100. 55%. For some of these questions, you are going to have to take a fraction out of 100 and reduce it to its simplest form. Now, when you're reducing fractions, one of the ways to reduce fractions is to find the greatest common factor of the numerator and the denominator. To do that, you have to write down the factors for the numerator and the factors for the denominator, and then determine the largest factor that is common between the two. And then you divide the numerator and the denominator by the greatest common factor and write down the reduced fraction. But some of you have actually been using a strategy that I think I like a little bit more, and that is you are using guess and check for this. So you are looking at the numbers and trying to figure out mentally what numbers what factors would be common between the two. And with 92 and 100, some of you might see right off the bat that we could divide both 92 and 100 by 2. So I'm going to just go ahead and do that. And 92 divided by 2 is 46. 100 divided by 2 is 50. And then you would look at 46 and 50 and see, once again, we could split that in half. So we can go divided by 2 and divided by 2, and we would get 23 over 25. And that is actually the simplest form of that fraction. So we would write 23 over 25. Now, if we were to follow the steps to find the greatest common factor, we would have found that the greatest common factor of both 92 and 100 is actually 4. So what we're doing when we divide by 2 twice we are dividing by 4. 92 divided by 4 is 23. 100 divided by 4 is 25. But many of you are kind of skipping that step and estimating, and I really love the number sense that you are showing by doing that. So I would love it if you could continue to show me in that way. Some of you might find this step to be a bit of a struggle, turning your fraction into a fraction in simplest form. And I want to remind you that I do have Zoom meetings available for if you are struggling. So if you find it too much of a challenge to turn those fractions out of 100 into fractions in simplest form, come to one of the Zoom meetings and we will go through the steps together. And that's it for today. You're filling in all of these numbers on this converting fractions, decimals, and percents page, and that's it for your math. Have a great day.